3, 2, 1.
Here we go! Happy Freight Friday. Wow, we have a big group today who seems very excited to talk about double brokering. Here's what we're going to do today, folks. I've got a great crowd for you. We've got a lot of people in the comments. I see it right now. We have Charles Lung, we have Ron, we have Mark, we have Eric. Everybody knows the best spot to go is over to YouTube. Hit that live chat button. Make sure to hit the subscribe button as well. And join in the chat and make some friends. Here's what we're going to do today. We have packed this episode so full because we want to help out people as much as possible with this double brokering issue. And you guys all saw my posts throughout the week. It stirred a lot of emotions from people. And we are going to talk about, here's what I've decided. I'm trying to think. I want to talk about what is double brokering. Because I noticed in the comments there's a lot of confusion out there. Some of y'all fall for the owner or operator or the leased on or the I'm a dispatcher trick. So we need to talk about that. We're going to talk about why companies double broker, because once you realize the why, and some of them are going to surprise you. Some of them you do not know some of those reasons. But once you find out why, you can anticipate it a little bit more. And then we're going to talk about what to do. And people, y'all are in the comments. Look, SwanLeap is here. Ron Kane is here. He said he double brokered Chris's hat. Grace, oh wait, Grace, you're on the screen too. And in the comments. You're so badass, Grace. And Andrea's here. So I'm excited. But first, I want you guys to all give mad love to our mad sponsors. We've got Keller, who is your go-to resource for anything trucking, anything you can think of trucking. They have solutions for. Just check out their website. They have tons of books, resources, anything to answer your questions, and they have consultants all over the country. You have OTR Capital, my favorite brokering company. Oh my goodness, all I can think about is brokering. My favorite factoring company, OTR Capital. They will take good care of you, factoring for brokers and carriers. And then SwanLeap, you just saw them in the comments. My favorite TMS is designed for brokers. It's not clunky. It's not old. You got good reporting. It's flexible. They're already integrated with your customers. So give them mad love, you guys, because without them, I would never do this show. And y'all wouldn't be able to bitch about double brokering in the comments and yell at CJolly on camera and stare at Grace's beautiful nails and wait for Amanda to start cursing. Yes, that's right. Amanda's with us today. Welcome, Amanda. I'm so excited to have you guys here. Amanda, our favorite flatbed broker in Alabama. Tell us, first of all, what is on your shirt? Because I have a feeling it's something good. I can't see it quite, though.
Trombone Shorty in Orleans Avenue. If you haven't seen them, if you know, you know. If you don't, check them out. They're awesome.
Ooh, I don't know anything about them, but I will totally check them out. We need to have like a event in Alabama so that we can all crash in on your house. And
this group of guys are from New Orleans. They're a big band, horns. Think second line, only huge. They're amazing.
I love the guitars in the background. I love everything that's going on in that background. I'm very jealous right now. This is cooler than your kitchen, although you have a nice kitchen too. And then CJolly has joined us. He continuously gets dragged back onto the show despite his bad behavior. But he needs no introduction. He's all over the place. If you guys haven't hired him to fix your shit, hire him. That's my new tagline for you, Chris.
Thank you.
Chris, how is Arizona treating you? I'm assuming that's where you are.
Yeah.
And are you drinking?
I'm not actually drinking because I got to pick my son up from school. So I'm trying to be responsible and not the
wait, what's the problem with that?
Yeah, I know. Drunk in the carpool lane is completely acceptable in New
pick me up
York.
half in the bag all the time.
Yeah, exactly. It used to be that way in Wisconsin, but I'm trying to be responsible. I don't want to bring him down that path just yet.
You're such a good guy. Then we have the infamous Grace. Grace, what is on your shirt? Because you have a good shirt. What is that?
That's the best regional manager of all time and the best assistant to the regional manager of all time.
I love that. Why are you so cool? Every time you're on this show.
I don't know.
So cool.
I am so cool. Thank you for recognizing that.
You guys know that she showed up and she's like, so what are we talking about? And I'm like, oh, Grace, I've been setting social media on fire all week, pissing people off about double brokering. She's like, oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start with with double brokering and what is it? Because y'all know there's one thing that pisses me off more than anything else. And I don't know if you guys ever hear this is, hey, Grace, it's not double brokering. This is my owner operator. And you're like, do they have?
And I'm like, let me see the contract that's your owner operator. And
I'd love to see this.
Just double brokering it. Yeah, I think that's a classic one. The other one is, the good old double broker it to rail. We all love that situation.
Oh, yes. I forgot about that one.
That one's fun because that one, who doesn't love a longer transit time?
And what do they do? Like, how do you know they put it on the rail instead of putting it on their truck like they promised you?
There was a customer once that started tracking, like putting a tracker in the load without even telling us about it. Yeah, and then was like, "Hey, just to let you know, it's already on the train." So the biggest thing you'll ever figure it out is when they come up with he broke down and it's going to take more than 2 days. And you haven't built a relationship with that carrier, and they can't give you his cell phone or anything to track to see, okay, let me confirm he's at a shop somewhere. That's on a train, and it'll get there when it gets there, and you might as well just meditate and continue on with that point.
Andrew Teal says, because the truck always breaks down in Kansas and gets to Chicago 2 days late. Exactly. I can see. Thomas says, I found out by a tracker that we had on the trailer. It was sitting in San Bernardino in California. Oh my God, I can't even talk today. Amanda, in the flatbed world, do they, I'm assuming they don't put your freight on a train. Do they broker your freight out? Like, what's the deal? I don't know much about flatbed. You're the only one I know that does flatbed and teaches me shit.
Yeah, all freight can be double brokered. And there's all different types of double brokering. Like somebody might consider, like I have a dispatcher who's a really close friend of mine now because I've worked with him forever. He lives in Oregon. He dispatches for multiple carriers. I don't consider that double brokering. What I consider double brokering is when someone sells me their asset truck and then that freight is delivered on another MC by an entirely different MC number carrier without my knowledge or approval. And that's when it goes south for me. But they can try to double broker, but I've learned over the years a couple of tips and tricks to stop it before it happens. It only took one time for me to be like, no, never again.
Never again. We'll talk about those in just a minute too. I can't wait to hear some of those tips.
I would rather go to my customer and be like, it's going to take a couple more days. I'm getting double brokered, whatever. Like, just hang tight with me. I'll solve this problem. Then just pretend like it didn't happen. I try to stop it before it ever gets there. And especially in this market, like we have to be hyper vigilant and know what the little red flags are and like what to look for and just kind of read into what people are saying on the other end of the phone. Be like, this doesn't smell right. So I'm going to pass on your truck. Even in a tight market, you got to know when to say no.
Chris, what do you think about dispatching? Like, do they tell you they're a dispatcher? Should you ask? And is that double brokering?
So
if they don't tell you?
I've worked with plenty of companies that are dispatch services. I've worked with some that are phenomenal. They're open to, they set up each carrier on an individual basis for you. They provide all the proper documentation, everything. And I've also worked on the flip side where, hey, check this other MC. Are these guys set up with you? Because then we can just commingle every single shipment out there. And then that's just a have a great day, I'm hanging up on you style moment. But, so it is, I would say the majority of the dispatch services that I've worked with, just like the gentleman who you had on your Steve, I believe,
Perez, yeah, you have a good memory.
Yeah, exactly. They do a great job, provide everything that you need. They're very tip top and on top of their stuff. But on the flip side, I've also dealt with the other side of it. And, and sometimes you don't find out about it until after the fact. And if you're a novice in the industry, you don't really think about that when they're like, oh, try this MC. Like that's the biggest red flag. Like if you hear somebody offer a second MC, hang up on them instantly and walk away. I'm going to tell you that right now. Don't
because you're like, wait, where did that MC number come from? Why are you
have
offering up another MC number?
Exactly.
We're not playing like MC roulette. Like you don't get like, oh, that one doesn't work. Okay, hold on. Let me give you this other one. I'm like, no. If the first one has bad safety scores, I'm not gonna. Again, what is it? It's like Russian roulette with MC numbers. Like, which one's gonna kill me? I don't know.
Can I ask you guys something? This is off topic, but I've always wondered this. No one will tell me the truth. Do carrier sales reps sometimes use dispatchers or know that a carrier that was accepted by their compliance company in their TMS, they know, all right, this MC number is acceptable and it's really like a dispatcher, or that carrier will give it to another MC number? Like, how much do carrier salespeople, who are the employees that are actually talking to the truck drivers and building those relationships, how much do they actually know what's going on? Because I thought in my head, I busted one guy one time because I was in the TMS and I was being crazy one night. And I knew we didn't approve this one carrier. And then shit got to be a mess and we got an invoice for that carrier. And I'm like, I remember not approving this carrier. And how did we get here? Does that happen? Or, was that just a real shitty company I was working for?
No, that happens. Yeah. No, I think a lot of times it's one of those situations where, especially like what Amanda was saying in this type of market, where either you're desperate or, and we won't even go down this route, but the way that you're compensated,
go down it.
The way that you're compensated, that's not a word. The way that you're compensated, the margin's so beautiful that because you don't own the company and the liability dependent won't fall on you, you're like, you know what? Let's go for the gold. Like, this extra $500 in my pocket is going to be worth dealing with that train or that carrier breaking down because he has to swap trailers or whatever minutia they're doing in the background to get that thing moved. Yeah, it's one of those two for sure.
I'm right there with you, Grace. And I think like that's my, like when certain models that brokerages operate in, it's like if you have a carrier sales team in Charlotte, but you have your customer sales team in Dallas, and they go in and lock these loads and you don't know about it. And like, you're like, oh, this is a great margin. And you're kind of taking the carrier sales rep's word for it. And then it turns out that, oh, this is a carrier that knowingly puts stuff on the rail. And I've had that conversation in a past role of mine where the carrier rep was blatant about it. They're like, hey, this guy's going to put it on the rail, but I'll get it to you for $800 less than what you're currently paying on it. I'm like, absolutely not. But the thing is to bring in the compensation piece of it, Grace, there's a lot of that kind of goes on. And it is a big problem. And I'm all about making money. Don't get me wrong. But I want to do it in a way where I'm not risking my customers' freight, knowing that we're doing something wrong just to make a couple $100 extra because it's just so many wrong things that can happen in that scenario. And then that $800 margin turns into you losing an $80,000 a month customer.
Yes, that's so true.
That $500 margin sounds good until you have to pay twice for the same load.
There you go.
Now you make zero or negative dollars. So like, what was the point? You could have avoided the whole thing.
There was somebody in the comments that a couple people, I've tried this before because I led a program trying to cut down on double brokering back in like a long time ago when I worked for a company. But I want to hear your opinions about this because somebody had said this. And Paul, I see that this is your comment on LinkedIn. Should always require driver's name, number. My company requires this, and we make sure our warehouses double check this, which is nice because he has control, sounds like, over the warehouses. And then I saw somebody earlier say something about pictures, and Ron brought up a good point as well. Like, kind of, yeah, it's 3 a.m. and I'm moving 600 loads out today. Who checks pictures? You guys, what's going on here? Why are people trying to check things? Could you give like some of the, like Amanda, could you give like the novice an idea, or sorry, the beginners an idea of why everybody's kind of checking things like this?
Well, this market is like a perfect environment for double brokering. Freight rates are through the roof. And I get a phone call on a load I have posted or whatever, because one of my regular carriers found another load that was paying $10 a mile, which is strangely enough not uncommon right now.
Wow.
If I get a call, how do I want to say it? Like, I mean, if I get a call and they get enough money out of me because I have it built in with my customer, they can turn around and broker the freight back out to another company. But when it comes to like pictures and stuff, like there's one company that comes to my mind that is constantly telling me, well, I can send you a picture of my truck. And I'm like, I don't care. I can go Google and screenshot.
I know, that's what I think too. I'm like, shit, they have tons of stock photos they're going to send you.
I'm like, I mean, is it going to be like from your personal cell phone? Is it going to be a water? Like, I don't care. I don't care about a picture. It doesn't do me any good. I can Google anything, so I don't know like what good pictures would do. Driver information is definitely helpful. Because that's
could they lie about that too?
A way to figure out like, and at least if it's already happened, you've already been double brokered. If you can get a driver on the phone and they don't know how to play the game that their boss or whomever dispatches them set up, you can cut right through the bullshit and be like, you're off the load. I'm not paying you, even if I don't care what happens. And then you'll figure out if and when the freight delivers, who delivered it, and you can cut that double broker out and pay that carrier directly. Ask the receiver, who delivered this shipment? What truck did it deliver on? And they'll tell you and be like, cool. And you just go straight to them and be like, hey, we got bamboozled. I'm cutting these guys out and I'm paying you what I was going to pay them. Because usually what the double brokered carrier's getting is far less than what was negotiated with the original, carrier.
I love that. Go ahead, Grace.
I've actually seen the opposite of that though, where you know where I'm going.
Yep, I love it.
The quick 30-day scheme, which is you actually double broker it out for a lot more, because that you want to make sure it gets picked up and delivered, so you get that POT. And then what they do is they go to a factoring company and they or some type of bank, they get a quick pay on that. They get the funds, they do that for 30 days, and then they disappear into the abyss. And the reason they do that is because they usually end up getting that larger price. Now, thankfully, in terms of a double payment, you don't owe the larger amount, but the carrier is sustaining their business on a larger amount. So it turns into like a very terrible book situation for them.
Yep.
Yeah, and like I'm glad you brought up like the quick pay. Quick pay to me is a red flag. If you can't sustain your business on a 30-day turn, then I mean, I'm just like, what's going on? Like, unless you're 3 months, 6 months, a year old, and you're trying to get on your feet and generate that cash flow. But the quick pay or fuel advance to me it makes me concerned. I'm not saying it's bad all the time. It's just concerning.
I agree. Jolly, what were you going to say?
No, it was in regards to the, asking for a fuel advance or quick pay up front. I mean, I guess I would rather have them do that up front than say go in and pick up the load and say, I'm not moving unless you pay me $1,000 right now. I've had that happen before. So it's like, to me, I get it. Like, you brought up a good point there, Amanda. If they're in like that 6-month mark where it's like they're not factoring, they're trying to do it on their own and they're asking for quick pay options, I mean, shoot, I would almost be more willing to trust them in that regard. If it's a one truck operation, they're newer in there and they're just trying to get their feet established, that might be somebody who I can build a relationship with, because I took care of them when they were new. And then as they grow, I get to grow with them. But I mean, obviously that's not always the case. That's a perfect world scenario in that regard. But it's like, when it comes to advances up front, I mean, I worked for a company that offered fuel advances, and I also worked for a company that didn't offer fuel advances. And we would always, just direct them to go to their factoring company, because some of them might not even know that their factoring company can provide it. So I think like in a lot of these scenarios as a broker, you need to provide a lot of this information to drivers, because like we think that every company that's out there is being informed on all the services that are truly available to them, and it's not the case. So I think like the more seasoned you get in this industry, the more information you need to provide to your partners to kind of help alleviate all these things. And I've seen this come up a lot in the comments. Like, if we trained our employees right, yeah, in theory, if you train your employees right, you will severely mitigate this risk because they're going to be able to identify a lot of these things. But we need to educate our employees on all aspects of the job and not just how is a carrier going to fuck us over. Excuse my language.
Whoa, you said excuse my language on my show?
So polite.
I know.
He is so polite.
I'm around ladies. I'm sorry.
We're ladies now?
Yeah.
The things you have called me do not go with me being a lady. Oh my
Petite
God. You
flowers.
guys, see what happens when you guys join the show?
Over here. Yeah,
He's so nice when you guys are on the show. When Adam Wingfield's on the show with him, they're like, oh, Cassandra, what a joke. Like, fucking get out of the way. We're going to run this show. Oh, look at her furniture. Look at her hair. She's a mess. And you guys are on the show with me. He's like, oh, excuse me for my poor language. Oh.
Correct.
Buttered bread, when I find out who you are, I'm going to punch you right in the face. Just want you to know that.
The mystery man.
For any of you who are just listening, you are missing out on a lot of really good comments. There's not, we can't address everything, but there are so many good comments and side conversations going on right now. It's just wonderful. But I will tell you that I have seen a couple people pop in with the leased on comment. That's not double brokering, Cassandra. They're leased on. They're an owner operator. I want to go back to like what Amanda and Jolly and Grace have also said, which is when you give a shipment, either a broker or shipper, to one MC number, and they turn around and give it to another MC number, that's brokering. And we call it double brokering because usually it's a broker who gives it to a carrier, and that carrier goes and brokers it, which means gives it to another MC number. And then you've got two brokering going on there. It is against federal regulations. If you are going to broker a shipment, you are supposed to tell the customer, whoever hired you, that you are going to broker the shipment and that you are a broker and your broker authority, because you're supposed to have broker authority. That includes carriers. And carriers, if you are giving a shipment to an owner operator, someone who's leased on, there's no other MC number going on there because they're leased on to your MC number. So the leased on thing is a lie. It's a trick. It's tossed around a lot. The owner operator thing is a lie and a trick, and it confuses people. But if one carrier is giving a shipment to another carrier with an MC number, that is brokering right there, people.
I got a question, Cassandra, because like my dad was an owner operator for a very long time. He was leased on, but because he stopped driving in the early 2000s, and maybe this has changed. He had his own MC and authority and insurance for the entirety of his career, but he was leased onto a trucking company at that time. So how does that, even though he was required to have his own active authority in MC, how do you mitigate that? How do you kind of eliminate that?
That's a really great question. And in fact, you're asking that question because Adam and I got in a fight about this topic. Here we go.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Where is Adam?
He's looking dapper at the Four Seasons in Charlotte. You know that.
Exactly.
4 Seasons? You think he stays at a Four Seasons? He stays at a Ritz. Please,
Okay.
4 Seasons
Is that better?
In his
Sorry,
world.
I anything above a Fairfield Inn and I'm fucking lost. So.
So here's what I'll tell you is that some owner operators or folks who lease on, it's the same thing, it's interchangeable, the term. They will have their own authority and they'll have their own insurance. But when you lease on, you're not using that own authority. It might be over here and you're going to use it on your own one day if a broker wants to individually give you a shipment outside of that leased on relationship. But when you run loads, the magnet on the outside of your truck is going to be the carrier you're leased on. It's going to be their DOT number is going to be on the side of your truck. You may have your own, but it won't be on the side of the truck. So that means when you get pulled over and you have inspections, the officer's going to write down the carrier you leased on, that carrier's DOT number. They're going to write down that carrier's DOT number. And because that's who's on the side of the truck. Sometimes with the owner-operator relationship, even if you don't have your own DOT number as an owner-operator, the company that you're leasing on will still require you to have some of your own types of insurance. So that's different as well.
Okay. I got you.
But no matter what, if you ever get confused, it's just follow that MC number. Whose MC number is on the side of that door? And if they give it to somebody else and that person's got another MC number on the side of their door, They're double brokering. Look at Jay-Z joins the house. What does he say? There's a difference between double brokering and co-brokering. It's called transparency, and don't get that confused. Jay-Z's in the house. He's dropping truth bombs. I want you guys to know that I invited Jay-Z to come on to the show, and often, like what Jolly does to me, he tossed me aside. All right, so we have talked about what double brokering is. We have talked about a little bit about why double brokering happens, because Grace hit on the big one that people miss, which is the fraudulent, like, I'm about to go out of business, so I'm going to give all the shipments you give to me, I'm going to give it to like 5 different carriers, promise them more money. You're going to pay me, and then I'm going to disappear into the land.
What about Marina? Marina had a good question that just popped up.
So what about this? Broker has a MC division. Broker sells the load to me, the carrier, but the BOL says the carrier is the broker's MC division. Is this double brokering? Hold on. What is the broker's MC division?
I can answer that.
Okay, go ahead, Amanda.
So I have like a handful of customers that I do blind shipments with, right? And so technically they're tendering the freight to me under my broker authority. So their bill of lading is going to have my company on as the carrier, but they know, like, I'm a broker. They know that, and I'm tendering that freight to an actual trucking company. So even though they receive a blind, like for example, a blind bill of lading that has my company as the carrier, I mean, it's never
that makes sense to me, Amanda. I think what I do is I follow the MC number on the side of the truck.
Yeah, because brokers have MC and DOT numbers.
Sorry?
I said, I mean, brokers have MC and DOT numbers, but just not.
But brokers don't own a truck and have the MC number on the side of it, right?
Yeah.
And if you do own a truck, if you do own a truck, and I guess if you had dual authority, okay, I'm glad you brought that up, Amanda. Let me back up a little bit more, folks. When I say MC number, I do understand that brokers have MC numbers as well. But in this context, we were talking about the motor carrier authority and their MC number. So it's okay if the bill of lading has the broker on it, like what Amanda said, which there's a lot of liability that goes with it. You guys, just, that's okay. And it happens quite a bit. But when we get into the double brokering business, that's because another carrier MC number, like with actual motor carrier active authority, is different on the truck than who the broker or the shipper hired.
Right. So like, even though the bill of lading has, Amanda Brokerage Alabama LLC on the bill of lading, I've hired a carrier that, I understand is going to pick up the freight. If the freight delivers on a different MC number, that freight was double broker.
Then you got a problem. Yep.
But just because the bill of lading has a broker on it as the carrier, because they don't change one thing on a PDF form.
Right.
That's not double brokering.
It happens quite a bit.
The customer knows I'm the broker. They tendered the freight to me as a broker. They know I'm going to hire an outside carrier.
I was going to say, I want to answer TBC consultants' questions about the transparency on why blind shipments. So blind shipments are brought.
Wait, hold on. I got to read it for the people who are just listening, though.
Oh, sorry.
Can y'all be more transparent as brokers on why blind shipments are done? Could use more clarification. Go, Jolly, go.
So blind shipments are a request from the shipper themselves. It's not us requesting that it's done. It's because who they're selling it to, they don't want them to know who it's coming from, because there's generally a competition that goes on in there. I found it in like the recycles game that's out there. They don't want it to know where it's coming from, so they don't know where it's going. I've had double blind shipments as well, and it's a huge mess. And I just think that but it is brought to us by our customers' request. It's not us as a broker bringing it and saying we're going to turn this into a blind shipment.
I have at least 5 steel customers that run blind, double blind shipments, like that I work all the time. I mean, it's a pain, but when you get the hang of it, it's really not that bad. You just have to make sure the carrier and the driver understands what they have to do at the shipper. If it's a double blind, shipper and receiver, there's a lot of paperwork they have to be able to have in hand to conceal the identities of all of the parties involved, because the receiver thinks they're buying the material from the customer when in fact it's being made somewhere else and they could get cut out, blah, 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 blah. I mean, I'm
confused because I'm with Mike Weist here. He said, I've only seen customers use blind BOLs because they don't want the shipper to know where the actual final destination is. That's my experience too when blind shipments, is that you give the carrier the BOL, but we don't have the destination on it. And usually it's the cargo is high value or there's something sensitive about it. But you're telling me your customers actually don't want the carrier's name on the BOL. They want your name on the BOL. And that's what you guys are calling it.
I was the one who, they tendered the freight to me. So like.
Is that, Amanda, do you feel like that happens more out of just laziness of not knowing who the carrier is? Because back to Cassandra's point.
But like when we're dealing with so much steel or whatever the commodity may be, it's just like, again, it's one field on a PDF form, but they'd have to change it every time. They can just duplicate the last blind bill that has my name, my information, all that stuff. And I've got to get that blind bill of lading to the driver. But the important part is to preserve the identity of where the material came from, in my case, like conceal the shipper from the receiver. We don't want the receiver to know where the material actually came from, because my customer may be a materials broker. It sources the material that they sell. And they don't want their customer to know that they could cut them out and go straight to the source.
And I think it's important.
Makes sense. I get it.
I think it's important to know, though, and I think Cassandra, and this could just be a whole different show, but you can legally and should change that to the carrier's name once that thing's signed, because if something happens, doesn't the liability fall like 100% on Amanda at that point?
Not 100%. It's just an argument.
I have a rate confirmation that binds the freight to the carrier.
Nice. Okay, cool.
So I think there's a different context. I think there's a different context too about that discussion, which is like back in 2012, it became very popular at TIA and all TLC and all that jazz, where it was like they scared all the brokers. I don't know if you guys remember, where don't let your name be the carrier on the BOL. Stop. And your company's gonna die. So it's an argument. Like, Amanda, if like we've talked about this in the past, where those accidents happen, trucker injures somebody or kills somebody, and then the broker sued. Well, the plaintiff attorneys do look to the BOL, and if they see the broker labeled on the BOL, they will make the argument that the broker is the carrier, therefore liable for the trucker's conduct. But now that argument's gotten so old, defense attorneys and insurance companies have found ways to rebut that, because brokers, Amanda said it, brokers can't control what goes on that bill lading. That's the shippers.
I mean, I've encouraged my shippers. I tell them who the carriers are. Like my particular customers that do these blind shipments, either single or double, sometimes triple. That's a whole other show. But like, I'm like, you really need to put the carrier. So they'll do like my Amanda Broker, Flatbed, Alabama LLC / carrier name. I mean, I don't know. So far, I'm grateful that I've been lucky. I haven't run into any trouble, except with like a driver was like, oh, I forgot to stop at the truck stop and get that bill of lading signed. And I'm like, neat. Did you read your rate com where there was a penalty for disclosing the shipper to the receiver? Sorry, Grant.
And not only that, like, who forgets to get that bill of lading signed? Is this your first day on the job? Good Lord.
Bill of lading signed. They'll just use the shipper's paperwork at the receiver, and they'll be like, it's no big deal. And I'm like, cool. But see, when we were talking about this freight and we sold it and we agreed to terms, this was part of the deal. And it's right there in the big, bold, not even tiny print, big penalty for not delivering blind shipment on BOL provided by Amanda Flatbed LLC.
Dang.
Or a lot of times if they make their own BLL, like they lost the paperwork, and then they'll just.
Well, the shipper gives them paperwork. This is major steel stuff, like huge steel. Thing.
I'm just saying. On delivery, sometimes that if they lose it in transit, then they fill it out and they put.
It just flies out the window.
Well, I've seen it happen numerous times.
Oh my God. Butterbread says drivers forget to wear pants. We've all seen it, Jolly. I love making Jolly laugh. It's my favorite thing in the whole world. Drivers, whoever Buttered Bread is, Grace, are you Buttered Bread?
Listen, you know I'm the number one investigator of Buttered Bread, and I have my own like Google document, all the clues. Like I'm pretty certain that I know. I mean, I
think you're Buttered
Bread.
You've been not me
this whole time.
We'll get to the bottom of it one day.
And she's the one who's been so mean to me. Okay, so the comments have been amazing, and we can't hit on everything that comes through because people have made such great points.
Yeah.
And Lester, I agree with you. I see your comments, and I think it's interesting. So let's go to how much time do we have? Oh, we have plenty of time. Okay, good.
Oh, time.
Let's
Hours.
go to. So we did the what is double brokering, why they double broker, and then I want to talk real quick. I want CJolly to tell us why whenever I post about double brokering, shit just lights up. People get so mad, man, and they're fighting among each other. Like, why is this topic so intense?
Because I think people are getting up in arms about it because they are actually double brokering and they don't want it to be brought to light. They knowingly double broker.
That's truth.
That's my honest opinion on it, because it's like, I mean, let's be real. If you've been in this industry long enough, you know all the red flags, okay? And you should be training your team. And now this does not make it go away, because there are professional criminals out there who do this for a living, and they will even dupe the most seasoned veteran out there. It'll happen.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that at the end of the day, people get up in arms about it because it exposes them in the long run. I think that's what the biggest thing is. And then there are people out there who, they're like, well, wait a second, is this what I'm doing? And they don't even realize it at the end of the day. I don't even think they realize what they're doing in that regard. So, I mean, I guess I would be a little upset too, but I think a lot of it comes down to, but this is like the best part about a lot of the content that's being put out there, is because a lot of these things have been around forever, but nobody's ever talked about them. So I think this is very necessary to be talked about.
Plus, I think there's a lot of deceit.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what you're going to say too, Grace?
Well, it's deceit, and it's like, I've gotten that call or that email from, there's a couple of companies that specifically love to, we all know them, that run off of letting you know that you owe someone money. And the moment you get that, and it's never on the load from yesterday. It's always like a load from like 5 or 6 months ago.
Yep.
And you especially you're running a business, no one wants a bill that they didn't see coming, that they already paid. No one wants that. You do that once, then you get that bill one time, you make that payment one time, and you now feel like the Batman of solving this problem. Like, you will go to extreme lengths. And Chris said it right. Like, people are smart, and they're going to get away with it. And it's like, there's people that aren't even in the United States. They're in other countries doing it. So it hits obnoxious. I
think though that, to me, cause like I've dealt with this a lot. But I think you're not talking to your drivers if this is getting to the point where you're receiving that bill 5 months later because they've been going back and forth and they haven't received payment from the person that they got it to. Because I've always had, I've dealt with this, and the driver will tell you the truth. Who do I send this invoice to? Do I send it to the person who gave me the load? Well, wait a second. I gave you this load. No, I got it from this company. All right, boom. I'm going to get you set up. Thank God we dodged a bullet here, but I'm going to pay you direct, and I'm going to pay you the rate that I was paying this person. So you have to do it that way. You can't just please don't chastise me for this, but you can't take the dispatcher's word for it. Sometimes you have to talk to the driver in these scenarios. That's where it doesn't get to my customer's attention, when you're speaking to the drivers. And again, this does not solve everything, but this will help alleviate a lot of these scenarios from getting escalated to the point where now you're paying out of your bonus check what this carrier has to, because by law, we have to pay these carriers because they have a rate con with our name on it and a signed BOL. And unfortunately, we're getting 2 signed BOLs.
Yeah, I was going to say my number one flag, especially nowadays, maybe even 2 or 3 years ago, I'd say differently, is and not asking for the phone number to track them or to constantly get updates, but to say can I get your driver's phone number just so I can go over everything and introduce myself and build a good relationship. If they say no, and with even any bit of aggression, that is like for me the number one red flag of like, okay, what's happening? Why can't I at least give him a call? I'm not calling him to berate him. I'm not calling him to do anything crazy. I just want to build a relationship in this market, right? We're working on our care relationships. I want him to know he can reach out to me directly if, it's midnight and he doesn't want to bother you. And they're like, no, how don't bother my driver. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, and let's say they kick back, hey, he's delivering right now. He can't right now. Fine. Can I give his number? And I promise I won't call him now, but I'll call him in like an hour or so. Then, and they're still against it. That's my number one like red flag of, okay, I'm going to go check, different carrier records and make sure that everything and your reviews are pretty strong. But dealing with a new carrier you've never used, that's a huge red flag.
If they're willing to give e-log information or put them on tracking, I'll take that over that. Because unfortunately, you guys, there are brokers out there who berate these drivers nonstop, 24/7, 365. They're not putting accurate load notes in the system. So when they leave for the day, it doesn't show that it's picked up, even though the broker knew it picked up. And then night shift comes in, track and trace, they're blowing up the driver's phone. So this does happen. So I think like if they're willing to give some form of tracking out there, it's like, hey, this is the driver's personal cell phone. That's fine. But here's e-logs. This is where they're at, satellite tracking, whatever it is. I'll take that.
Yeah. But I agree with Grace. Like I tried like every day to be like a broker who's trying to change our reputation one load at a time. Like I want the driver to know, because they're ultimately the ones who are going to have to face any bullshit, detention at a receiver or whatever at the shipper. I want you to know you can call me and I'm going to be an advocate for the driver directly so that they can get in and out, because I don't want them delayed. I want them to know that they do have like a friend in me. I don't know, maybe is that a song? Like I'm here to help. I'm not here to call every 30 minutes. I don't give it, like, I'm going to leave you alone. Like, do your job. I'll do mine, but I want the drivers to know part of my job is to take care of you, make sure you have all the information you need, every pickup number, every coil tag number, how heavy it is, all the details, so that they can do their job effectively with minimal, interruption. So if I can give all that to them on the front end, I can sit back and relax. But like Grace said, if a dispatcher gets really aggressive or angry about wanting to share that information with me when my intentions are good, I'm suspicious of what they're up to. I mean, I'm just like, well, I'll wait.
I wanted to dive more into the avoiding this from happening. I would like to tell folks that I thought maybe we would have. No, I didn't. I'm going to lie. I figured we wouldn't have enough time to talk about what to do when you receive that collections notification. They look like a law firm, and they're demanding payment, and they're threatening immediately to call your customer and tell them what a sleazy shithead you are. And they're not a law firm. There's some poor, like, hourly employee that hates his or her life, and that just wants you to pay the bill. So I figured we might get to what to do when you receive that demand for that double brokered load. So on my website, I did post a Cassandra's 5 tips or whatever you call it. Hold on, let me make sure. I'm going to put it in the comments now. Hold on, let me make sure I do it at all destinations. Go to my website, mattlive.com. You'll see in the corner there's a little blog spot. And I will, and I put in there, here's what I do as a lawyer, because these things always come to me when I'm in-house counsel. It's like, Cassandra, we don't even know what's going on. This person's threatening to call our customer. They're our best customer, blah, 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 blah. And here are what I do. This is not legal. This is not a legal argument. This is practical. Like, it's what I do to practically get rid of the situation. So it gives us a little bit more time to talk about what else can you do to avoid these things happening to me, to you. So, before we do that, before we go into how to avoid being brokered, I meant to ask y'all, I did have some comments that were like, what's the big deal? Did you see those, Chris?
Yes.
Like, what's the big deal? It happens all the time. Stockbrokers do it. And then a couple shippers were like, why? Yeah, I'm not kidding you, Grace. I'm not kidding. I should have sent Zeke. I should have sent Zeke the images of the chats where people were like, what are you guys all carrying on about? What is the big deal? Like, why would your shipper care? Why do you guys care? If it's delivered and the freight is fine, I'm quoting someone in their comments. Why do we care if a shipment was brokered out to a carrier we don't know about? Go ahead, Amanda.
My reasoning is altruistic. I will admit that. This business has to be built on a foundation of trust. And when you violate the trust, everything is gone. We're dealing with people across state lines and customers from across the country who we may see twice a year, whatever, but we talk to a lot. Once you violate the trust, and it's also bad freight karma, you put that bad juju out in the universe, it's coming back to you. I've seen it happen over and over again. And I don't want to be caught up in that mess. It violates the trust of the transaction. And reputations are really hard to make, but super fucking easy to lose. Be mindful of that. It's all about trust.
What's your cheater? You're always a cheater, people.
Yeah.
Grace, I'm sorry.
No, 100%. Yeah. I think kind of to go even more ethical on that than even Amanda just did is at the end of the day, there is a margin on that freight that is unnecessary. And I don't think people are understanding that most of the time the end consumer is paying that. They're to go through three different brokering type of events, however you want to say it's happening, or even two, there is someone making an extra dollar off of the consumer for no reason. And sometimes I just wonder what it would be, because let's say that I just got that carrier, the final carrier who actually ended up delivering it on the load. I probably wouldn't have to charge my customer as much. I could bring down my costs and develop an actual good relationship with the carrier who ended up taking it, who might want this again, who might be able to build their business off of it. And now we're driving down cost in that lane that is okay for the overall economy of moving that freight, and then bring some savings back to the customer. I mean, look at where we're at right now with how bad the market is. What's the number one thing you're starting to see people do? And you see it in earnings statements, they're raising the cost for goods. They're not going to eat that.
Yeah, ship goes downhill.
Yeah, I'll give it. It's here's the thing. I agree and I don't agree, because I feel like if people are making money, people are making money. It's the rate of, it's our industry. But from a lawyer's perspective with this brokering business is because I understand that people there's trust, you're skimming off the top and you're not even really doing much. But at the end of the day, when you don't know where your shipment is or who's running it, it's more likely to get an accident. What are you guys laughing about? Tell me now. What did Butterbread say? Butterbread.
Jonathan Trimble, $3 to $5 per mile, baby. Jonathan Trimble said that got me cracking up.
Oh my God. Buttered crumbs is what I was losing my composure over.
Sorry.
You know what?
Get paid, Jonathan. Get paid.
And Jonathan Trimble, whom I love, Jonathan Trimble. He's so smart. Love him. I don't even know what the fuck I was gonna say, you guys.
I'm not even clever enough to be Buttered Bread. I just want that said right now. Buttered Bread is clever. We all know who it is. He knows who he is. And
why can't a sheep be clever? What if it's you, Grace? You're so clever.
I wish I was as funny as Buttered Bread.
So here's the thing, you guys. Whenever, as a lawyer, when shit goes wrong, and y'all are so busy selling and ops and everything else, it all lands on my plate to clean up the mess. And almost every time stuff has gone very, very, very wrong, it's a double, triple, quadruple brokered load, whether it's an accident, whether it's tens of thousands of dollars owed to 50 different carriers that we never even knew about. whether it's cargo claims up the wazoo, stolen shipments, I could go on and on and on. The further away the shipment gets from the shipper, the more likely you're going to shipper. The more likely you're going to have many problems on the road and lose money.
Yeah,
I do want to address Mr. Kane's sarcastic comment that double brokering is bad because it upsets brokers.
Well,
Ron, it upsets me as a broker because my relationship with my customer is built on trust. And if they can't trust me, I don't have a customer. So yes, that does upset me.
Ooh, snap. I wish I still had my, do you remember, Jolly? I used to have my headset.
Yes.
That y'all made fun of me about, but I had my whole music thing, you know?
Yeah.
Where it hit things, but you guys made fun of me and shamed me so much that I stopped. Anyhow, Jolly, you're dying over here. What do you want to say?
No, I think that like when you're talking about like when it gets to like, I guess in the entirety of my career, like yes, double brokering did happen, but it wasn't as prevalent as a lot of people might experience, because I think when it gets to that point, when you have that bad load, when you have that show up on the rail or how, you know, whatever that is, you have to stop at that moment and train your staff. What could we have done differently in this scenario? Because if it continuously happens, it's you. You are not putting forth the effort to have this not happen again. Essentially, in plain English, it's on you. It's not the carrier's fault. It's not the carrier's fault for doing it. It's your fault for continuously allowing it. And now I get it. This doesn't make it all go away, but I have brokered tens of thousands of loads in my career, and I can remember a handful that got to the triple brokered status where I had to pay 3 separate carriers for the load. But then you have to put the steps in place. What can we do differently? And if you're not doing that, it's on you. I'm sorry, it's on you.
Yeah. Like, I can't tell you how I agree with exactly what Jolly said and you said, Cassandra. Like, it's usually found out through like an issue, and then like every time I had an issue with a double brokered load, like the reps just weren't following through 100%, whether it was trying to track them, like, oh, didn't even ask. Okay, well, it looks like you're going to enjoy 4 days of telling your customer that you don't know where this freight is.
Yeah. Or your cargo claim doesn't have insurance.
Yes.
Period.
Yeah.
Whole truckload of cargo claim has no insurance because it was brokered.
Yes.
Double brokered out to somebody. Sorry. That's a big one, you guys. And I don't know how much to say. Like, my clients come to me and they're like, Cassandra, this carrier brokered out to this carrier, and there's a scheduled bin policy and da-da-da. And now there's no insurance. What do I do? And I'm like, you're shit out of luck. I'm sorry. There's literally nothing I can do. I think I'm a great lawyer. Jolly sometimes says otherwise, but you're out of luck. Like, that's another thing that goes on.
Open your checkbook and pay out the damages.
So I would like to let you guys know that, where did it go? We had another little clever comment by SwanLeap. Why was the grocery store out of butter? Butterflies. That was cute.
That is cute.
Oh, God.
Oh, sorry, Jolly. Was that not funny enough for you?
No, I was saying hashtag dad joke. I was just going to say hashtag dad joke. I'm literally using that with my son when I pick him up from school today. I'm using that with my son.
You guys have 6 minutes. What is your remaining? You either get to leave a remaining tip, or you get to vent. You get to do whatever you want. Each of you have 2 minutes to say whatever you want. Who wants to go first? Grace, you're in, and I bet it's toward butter bread, but go ahead. Just go ahead.
I can't be butter bread and speak at the same time. Like, that's
I don't know. A couple times I saw you like this under here secretly. Yeah. I don't trust you.
I saw someone said I was cute. That's interesting. I think one of the biggest things that stops this situation from happening, and this really goes into the problem I think a lot of people are dealing with right now, is build good relationships with carriers, and you can avoid this usually from happening, because if you know.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
SwanLeap says I was trying to make a butter pun, but the margin for error was too great. That was really good.
That one was good.
Okay, go ahead. I'm listening. Trust.
No.
Building it.
Build trust. I can't tell you. If I've used a carrier more than a handful, 10 times, they are less likely to do this. If you onboard the carriers correctly, if you actually build a relationship, you build a relationship with the dispatchers, you build a relationship with the carriers, you butter up to those carriers. If you just spread some love on those dispatchers and really, really let them know that there's no need for a margin of error within this transaction, then you're going to avoid it overall. And I think the issue is when we say it's happening more right now than it ever has, it's because people are scrambling and just trying to cover loads. And the first person who calls them and says, I'll take it, they're like, yeah, cool. I'm going to speed you through our onboarding system and get you in here.
Yep. Screw all those rules for onboarding we have. Let's just get rid of that. Capacity matters. This is a $5,000 rip, Cassandra. We don't need to verify anything. Go.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like,
that's $5,000 rip for a $100,000 claim that no one will pay out. But I think that's the biggest thing is, invest in your carrier relationships, and you will just naturally kind of see this stuff die.
And for those of you who want to put that into your SOP, what she just said, which is you're going to put a lot of rules around first-time carriers. They're the first time you've ever used them, so you should only give them one load at a time. You shouldn't lower your vetting standards. Know how much money that is. By the way, plaintiff attorneys would love to hear that. And thirdly, you should wait time until you get that signed POD, until everything's settled, the dust is settled, before you give them more shipments. Those first-time carriers are usually the ones who double broker on you, y'all. There's ways you can vet them too. But Amanda, what do you got for us?
My number one tip to stop it before it happens is to be super strict on your carrier vetting. Know what to look for, know what to listen for when you're talking to a dispatcher or an owner operator, whomever the case may be. Vet the carriers. Take 2 extra minutes while you have them on the phone. I've stopped talking about the freight that they're calling on and I'm asking for MCs up front before I even say anything about the freight. I'm like, thank you for calling. What's your MC? I need to check on something really quick. And I want to look and see, and there's some red flags, if I hear a bunch of chatter in the background, but the MC they gave me is from Glendale, California, and with a 1-truck operation. And again, this market is perfect for double brokering. There's so much money. Freight spends are in the dumpster. They've already burned. They're gone. Ashes. There's so much money just so every company can get their material, be it raw steel or whatever, or toilet paper. It doesn't matter. Vet your carriers. Know what to listen for. There's little things that people will let slip and say that should immediately alert you. Again, I have a truck. No, it's not our reputation, but it is. You knew what the reputation was. No.
Yeah.
And no one can say no, even in a tight market. But if you have a good relationship with your customer, talk to them. Tell them be honest. Again, going back to my argument about honesty, we have to be able to trust each other. And just vet the carriers. Vet them. And I agree with Grace, if you onboard a new carrier in a consistent lane, because again, I have consistent lanes that my regulars are but see, there's this other load from Baltimore going to Pittsburgh that's paying $9,000. I'm like, well, go for it. Call me in 2 weeks when they run out of shingles, I'll wait, because I'm not going to get $9,000 out of my customer. I can't do that. My customers are now experiencing freight spend fatigue. This has been going on for a year, but it's a capitalistic economy. I get it. Make the money while you can.
Yeah. Jolly, what you got for us?
I guess in closing with this, I think a lot of what we need to look at as brokers is being aware of taking on what we can actually handle. I think a lot of these scenarios pop up because we overcommitted. Our backs are against the wall. We got 4 loads open to cover. Just fucking cover it with whoever. Hopefully this works out. I think we have to be aware of that. I think any shipper who's watching this right now would rather have us only commit to what we can cover than overcommit and then have us roll the dice with their customers' freight, because that's who it is. It's our customer's customer who it's going to. We have to be aware of that. And, I'm not, like take risks. I'm not saying that, because you have to do that in this industry to make it, but be aware of your capabilities, and especially in a tight market, in any market really, is don't back yourself into that corner where you have to roll the dice with somebody who gives you those red flags. And you're like, well, I don't want to risk possibly losing my customer from this. So be aware of what you're committing to before you actually roll the dice with their freight.
100%.
I love that. I would like to say that SwanLeap has another one for you guys.
Perfect.
No joke at buttered bread. You're my butter from another udder. And you got Jolly to laugh too.
Yes.
That is the one. That's the one.
Yeah. Thank you for the compliment, SwanLeap.
Oh my God. So for those of you who missed out and you're like, well, what do I do when I get that collections notification, or what you think is a law firm saying you need to pay us $5 million for all these shipments, blah, 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 $5,000 or whatever. It's a joke. Go to my website, mattgainslive.com, hit the blog button. I put a article there that will help you walk through each step on how to handle these collections companies, because they are a pain in the ass. I think next Friday we have JJ Keller. We're talking about carb. Many of our favorite topics, but thank you to our wonderful guests and everybody in the comments. You guys are amazing. We need to bring you back for like another really hot topic, and then I'm going to pitch you guys against each other.
I was going to say, if they're talking about carbs, you should probably get buttered bread on next week too.
Oh, that was so good.
Oh, I'll be there.
So good.
I'm just gonna own it. I'm just gonna own buttered bread.
Oh,
now.
buttered bread says carbs. That's me. Oh, that's hilarious. All right, happy Friday, you guys. Don't drink too much, and don't drink and pick up your kids from school. Rule number 1 in the world of buttered bread, I'm sure. All right, happy Friday, and we will see you guys next Friday.